Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are on the sidelines with the sideline guys for another NFL edition of the show. And you know, I got my guy Cole on. So we're trekking over to the motherfucking National Football Conference. That's correct, right?
Oh,
That's what
yeah, for
that's what it
sure.
stands for. I gotta
NFC,
make
yes,
sure.
sir.
Gotta make sure.
American National.
Yep. That sounds about right. And of course, with that legendary silky voice, only one thing is true. My guy Cole has returned. So Cole, why don't you remind the people where they can find you at?
Silky sweet and smooth. You know what it is the underscore real underscore J. Cole on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, sir. This man's got a voice for radio, but not the face for one either. So make sure you're following him because he's gonna satisfy the eyes. Okay, but make sure you're following me as well at Negron MMA on Twitter as well as TikTok, Chris Negron underscore on Instagram. Been having fun posting every day now. That's my goal. Every day I'm posting a video of my progress and my journey trying to get out of debt in NYC. So check that out if you're interested. And of course, my goal is to continue to post every day, not just in that realm but also with all we do on this show. So looking forward to dropping some reels on this very episode. But we are back for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. And if you want to continue supporting us and finding out what other future reasons we're going to keep coming back for, make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube, so you never miss all the dope stuff we got coming your way. So, with all the pleasantries past us, Cole, we get to look forward to, of course, the NFC, but specifically the NFC North. And I'm really excited to start out with the team that I was very optimistic about last year, right? Super looking forward to what they had to offer. But I was a year early, right? I think that's happened to me a couple times with a couple different teams across different sports, if I'm being real. And that team is the Chicago Bears with the first pick in their excuse me, with the 10th pick in the first round, they drafted tight end Colston Loveland. Now, I think it's very important to say right off the top, Colston Loveland was my number 2 tight end, and he was Cole's number 4 tight end. So you would say this might have come to a bigger shock to Cole than it was to me, but I thought it was shocking that he went before Tyler Warren. So I'm just curious, Cole. How do you feel about the pick? What does it mean for Chicago and all that good stuff?
Well, I mean, the one thing that we did talk about in a previous episode, because we did discuss Tyler Warren, is that, he gives better vibes potentially in the dynasty leagues. And then what the Bears are looking at wanting to replicate, kind of giving like a Sam Laporta, Travis Kelsey vibe coming out of college, right? So he's improvising on the fly, and that helped for Caleb Williams. And if you could see in these first 3 picks, they have a clear goal of what they're wanting to do in this next season. So, I mean, it's still a great pick. It's not a position quote of need, uh, but it is a better upgrade at the position than what they had prior.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting to me because I don't know why I feel like whenever guys get the capital, it kind of changes everybody's mind, right? And now this is the tight end one. And I think everybody has the right to feel how they felt, right? I think this doesn't tell us anything. It just tells us where he got drafted. But I think it was a surprise to everyone. I could see what you said though. I think this is one of those moments where you could tell it's the Ben Johnson orchestration. And obviously there's the most interesting part of that, right? And I think we'll get to that as we go further down as well. Um, is obviously they added a running back much later, but that's the one thing in my opinion that's missing from the Ben Johnson archetype, right? That 1-2 punch, and especially considering, right, Swift was once traded away from a Ben Johnson offense and upgraded to Jameer Gibbs and the David Montgomery two punch, right? The 1-2 punch. So I'm interested to see if maybe there's a move awaiting, right? Maybe there's somebody that's still out there that interests them, or if they're staying put, because I'm actually very heavily invested in Swift in all my dynasty leagues. So it'll be great for me, right? But that was a side tangent that was really random. Do you have anything to say about that before we move on, Cole?
I mean, nothing really else. I mean, we've already went through him in our top 5 before. It's just that he's not flashy. He's just a solid tight end, and I mean, makes sense why you'd put him at 2. And I guess I just put him lower just because it wasn't as flashy. And a lot of times in the league, a freak athlete tight end, not even just receiving the ball, but also blocking. So, I mean, he's a solid blocker. You know that he's used to that because he came from Michigan.
Yes, sir. Does the things the right way, and I definitely think he would have went in the first round no matter what. But I think a lot of the league were surprised by this one too. So I don't think once again it tells us much. But we move on to their second round pick with pick 39. They get Luther Burden, and this one was honestly really surprising to me. Honestly, um, super surprising to me. And the reason for that is obviously the history, right, of this team. Last year, they trotted out one of the deepest wide receiver rooms, but you could argue a lot of these guys maybe weren't complementary pieces, right? Maybe weren't the fit that they needed them to be with the trifecta of DJ Moore. Why am I forget? I could see his eyes. Keenan Allen and what's the
Mike
other one?
Williams.
Yeah, there we go. But this year, no, Roma Dunze
Yeah,
that they
Roma Dunze.
drafted.
My fault.
But now adding to this room, I think this is a really great pick. I think not only does this once again scream Ben Johnson, but I think it's a really cool pick because the fact that he slid that far, I think, is pretty remarkable, right? But beyond that, I just think they have a very deep wide receiver room, and he's going to be the one to clearly grow, right? Him and Odunze, I think, are here for the long haul. Whether or not DJ Moore stays along is very interesting, and I think that might d- be hinging on how successful they are this year, right? If maybe it works out this way, then they would be willing to try to bring all these guys back, right? But obviously, this is something we could think about down the line. But I think this is the rare case where someone's in such a deep wide receiver room, but you're not really scared by it, just because, once again, right? You see what Ben Johnson was able to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown's career and the ways in which he's able to perform much above what was expected, right, out of his career in that kind of role. And I think his skills, right, Luther Burden's skills, are entirely tailored to this role in an offense, right? So you could almost argue like if you just cut your eyes out and don't look at how deep the wide receiver room is, you could say this is like best case scenario for where he landed. Um, so I really like this. He was our number 5 wide receiver across the board, and I feel like he might end up looking like a much higher number along the lines.
Well, I do know somebody, not tooting anyone's horn, that knew Amon Ra was going to pop off in his rookie year. I don't know who that guy was, but he definitely took him in all his fantasies. But whoever that guy is, I guess he would also know Luther Burton is in a really good spot, like you said, a deep wide receiver room, but also this is like Debo Samuel of this draft that just happened, right? So he's going to be used in the run game. They're going to send him in a lot of motions, so be ready for that. And he just makes people miss, right? So that's why I wanted to rank him higher, but we had so many talent, like we said, with this receiver, at least in that top 5, top 7 area, the receiver core was really good in this draft, and then the running backs are deep. So he kind of gets to be a hybrid of both, and he's basically going to get to do whatever they ask him to do, and he's going to produce.
Yes, sir. Produce is the key word. I'm just interested once again how the splits are going to look. I feel like a lot of things can go right and a lot of things could go wrong. So time will tell. But we move on to their second pick in the second round because they got a bunch more. We got Ozzy Trapillo with the 56th overall pick. I had him as one of my honorable mentions, and I agree. I think if we had more time to talk about all these different things, I think specifically offensive linemen, I think he would have definitely went up in Cole's offensive mentions as well. Offensive honorable mentions. Look, I'm a little rusty, guys. It's okay. We come through this together. But um, really excited for the player and the prospect, and the fact that he got picked up this high, honestly. Um, and what I love about it is I didn't expect him to go this high, but at the same time, in a way, he did fall to Chicago, right? They were able to move back and still get their guy, right? So it's kind of a double-sided thing, right? I'm high on the guy, and then they also were able to sort of make things happen down the line by waiting a little bit as well. Um, I think what I really like about him more so than like the majority of other guys is just the pedigree, right? Like I know this guy's gonna show up, and he, more than a lot of other prospects, even in this draft, and maybe even went higher than him, he doesn't need to be coached up. Like he's very much so, in my opinion, ready to go. Whether or not that ready to go prospect can um, stay on the field at this stage is going to be the biggest question. But I think he's going to be a big time producer for this team.
I'm about to say I don't think that they'll have to worry about rushing him into it even in this first year. This is what's his name? Braxton Jones. This is his last year for them. So, and not only is it a Ben Johnson thing, shout out to the new general manager Ryan Poles, if I remember correctly. So it shows that they both have a vision together and they're working in hand, which is a great thing to have in an organization. Um, and he definitely screams more right tackle than left, but he did play both. Majority was at right. And then the only thing negative you could really say is he might give up too much ground, but then as soon as he does, he doesn't allow an inside move. So uh, realistically, probably the seventh best tackle overall. Maybe you could put him in this, like he's talking about, sneak him in top five, but definitely honorable mention worthy if we didn't include those interior guys. He might not even have to play this season, but he might end up taking over at that right tackle spot by the middle of the season anyways. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, my guy.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We're once again we're riding through the kinks together on this, ladies and gentlemen. But we move on to their third pick in the second round, pick 62. They get Shamar Turner, and I love the segues here, right? Because you're clearly this guy's on it, right? He knows where he's going based on where he's been, and obviously it's time to talk about this lineman room. I'm really excited about this group. I'm particularly excited because they were able to acquire somebody that's very near and dear to the people around you, and Grady Jarrett. And I don't think, once again, the same situation. You're in such a deep room that you don't have to be the guy, right? You're a part of the guys, and when you have that kind of support, I think an athlete like Shamar Turner could really, really make a big game-breaking difference in this offense because they're not begging them to be out there on all four downs. Am I crazy, Cole?
No, you're not crazy at all. Their defensive line room actually is a lot. I think it's being very undervalued right now. That people forget that the past two seasons for the Bears, their defense still was in the top 12, right? So the potential is there across the board defensively. They just keep adding pieces where they need them on the defensive side of the ball, so that way this overhaul that they've done in the first three picks on offense to help the young quarterback, and now they can go ahead. And I mean, this is a steal. This is a late second round pick. And they're going to he's probably going to move around a lot on the line. Like, he's labeled as an interior guy, but he has the speed and the weight to kind of play end if they have to and let him get off the edge. So they're going to be able to do a lot of things with him. And anytime you get a player that's very versatile, especially it's your first defensive player off the board, is a really good sign.
Yep, definitely. And once again, just a stacked second round. Like, I think this is really, once again, I loved Chicago looking in last year, right? So I feel like I'm falling for someone that's abused me right now, right? But I just feel like, especially with all this capital in the second round, they set themselves up to have a good draft grade at the end of this. We move on to the fourth round, pick 132. We got Ruben Hippolyte, which is one of the most interesting and intriguing names in this draft, if I'm being honest. But one that we didn't really talk about leading up to this. So, Cole, I'm going to switch up the order a little bit here. What do you got for us on Mr. Hippolyte?
Well, the one thing I do have is it's not like he led the team in Maryland with a lot of tackles. He had 66, but the main thing, he's like very fast for a linebacker. Very game speed, right? Ran well in his pro day. And he just wants to shoot gaps and fill holes. Now, he's a little inconsistent on hitting holes, which they can work with. So he's a little bit rough around the edges. But he shows up with aggression, and because of his speed, he's able to drop in zone coverage a lot better than you realize. And he had a lot of BPUs or pass breakups, PBUs, my fault, and closes well on any interior route that's being thrown real quick. So it's a good pick, but I didn't think they needed a linebacker. But maybe something's going on with it. Obviously, contract situation. I didn't look up that exactly, but I know that if they see this guy ranked higher than, I mean, he's a late fourth round pick. Obviously, they got their first four and then sat for almost two whole rounds. And saw this guy was still on the board, and they were like, maybe we just need to go on ahead and get him. So maybe they had him
Mm.
ranked higher and just went for it at that point and just filled a spot where they have had tendencies to have injuries. So that would make more sense.
Yeah, I got a few underrated notes on this one because I don't know why I think this guy particularly interests me. Not because I feel like he's like some insane kind of prospect, but the same sort of ideology. Like why this guy here? And I feel like looking back at the draft, it's a little easier to sort of see, right? I think if a guy like Cam or Bashal Tootin even was still on the board, I feel like that would have been the easy play to make, considering how they went all offense before this, right? But I mean, besides from our Turner, but I think either way, it's a pick that really, once again, more you think about it, fits. I think he tested great at the combine. I think he had a 4.42. So that kind of athlete, I would imagine he's probably going to play middle or weak side linebacker. I think ultimately, though, once again, this isn't a guy that I think they're going to be begging to produce for them, and I think having a player like this at this pick in those conditions is pretty good. So once again, I'm liking it, Bears. I don't know. We move on to the 5th round, pick number 146. We got Za Frazier. Now, I'm gonna be frank here. This is the one guy that I had no idea about. Right, I had to lock in. Right, I had to figure out what I was looking at here, and I think what really makes this pick cool is I think they're pretty much set at corner, right? Like they can play around and move him in different places based on down needs, based on who just ran a go route. Maybe you need some air, right? Like I feel like they can play him around, and I think he's versatile in that way that he fits that mold. Um, I don't think he is particularly, once again, toolsy, right? Not a fast guy, but I think he tracks the ball well. I liked what I saw overall, but obviously not too blown away as much as you like though for a 5th round pick. How you feeling?
Well, I wouldn't say he's not fast when he ran a 4.36. That was the fifth fastest out of the corners. Um, it just said, 6'3", 186, right? So he's got size. He's got a decent enough speed. If you want to say 4.36 isn't fast in corners.
I feel like it doesn't come on the tape as much as it did on the field.
Okay, very true. On the ball, yes, but his tape did look crazy. Now, for him to be that size, though, his hands are a little small, so he dropped a lot of catchable interceptions, and he's still tied for second in FBS last year with 6. So that's just testament to how well he puts himself in position, regardless if it's caught or not. So I'm actually higher on this pick than
Love it.
potential because I feel like there's a chance that he might try to come out for somebody's job on the outside.
Wow.
And
I need to write this down. When Cole
yeah,
says something,
hot
you got
takes,
to lock
baby.
in. You got to lock in. Yeah.
And then obviously with his size too, right? He missed tackles, but he's a corner. But the fact that he wants to go make tackles at 6'3", either they might put some weight on him and be less man with him and not worry about, like you're talking about, maybe make him a little slower, but then make him wherever he's just able to put himself in position. Or, excuse me, he can just keep it where he's at, maybe make him a little slimmer and just make him like just a big, like just call him a one on the court in basketball, right? Like he's just gonna facilitate everything.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great shout. Um, our next pick, we go to 195 of the draft, round 6. We got Luke Newman. What do you got for us, Cole?
All right. Well, this guy, buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This is depth that they need in the interior guard.
Mhm.
Uh, his first 4 years, he was at left tackle at Holy Cross, and then he transferred to Michigan State, and then started there at left guard. So had never played interior, played left tackle when he was at Holy Cross, then goes to Michigan State, an FBS program, and goes and plays left guard, and then basically holds his own against Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, like I'm talking about like elite guys, right? Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, like guys we know, first round talent, holding his own perfectly fine. And that's what basically put him on the radar, right? Then he was in the East West Shrine Bowl, and they put him in all 3 spots in the interior, let him snap the ball, and just went, all right, this guy's something. So this is just one of
Mhm.
those late round lineman picks that you're like, all right, yeah, I can work with this, right? So he can just mold and develop wherever you need him on the line.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is obviously he wasn't on my radar so much, but I feel the same way, right? You look at this pick and you're like, how does somebody with this like clear awareness, right? No matter where he's at. How does somebody with this awareness fall this late? I don't know. But once again, impressive stuff from the Bears here. Now, finally, we move on to round 7, pick 233, and this is the fun one. This is one that I really enjoy. Our guy, Kyle Manungai, and I think in a lot of specifically dynasty leagues, you could probably still get this guy off the waiver. He probably not even going to be a draft pick in these leagues, but I think he could definitely bring some physicality to that Bears backfield. And I think he's just somebody that like runs angry, super compact. And it's weird because you get lost in the shuffle in this year specifically, right? Like I feel like in a lot of different years, maybe this guy would have been a 4th or a 5th rounder. But I just think that's the kind of deep depth there was from this running back class. And I think the testament to that, right? I encourage you all to take note of this once it's draft season for redraft, right? And you're looking at your not dynasty, your regular fantasy leagues, and you're getting ready to draft your own teams. A lot of these top running backs are rookies. So lock in because I think this class is pretty deep, and I think he has a chance to produce coming out the back end of it.
Oh man, this guy is going to be a bowling ball for the Bears. I guess we're going bowling ball Bears. I mean, because ridiculous, right? So he's first team All American for the Big Ten, or first team, All American Big Ten. I'm going to make sure I said that right. And he led last 2 seasons combined for Rutgers in rushing, 25-41, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not just the running, it's the pass blocking in the backfield as a running back, right? Those shorter running backs, especially at his weight at 211, benefits him a lot in that pass blocking. And here's the main thing, right? Ball security wins games. 669 carries since 2021 and 0 fumbles. None whatsoever. Short down and distance, he's getting the ball. Good luck. Have fun. Goal line, he's getting the ball. He's about to rack up a lot of rushing touchdowns for the Bears. This is a fantastic 7th-round pick. I mean, I feel like every running back we've basically liked. I mean, a few of them will end up being bust and we'll be a little upset. But for the majority of this whole entire class, I feel like everything is positive when it comes to this running back. So Derrick Henry and Saquon brought the running back life back alive, and we just conveniently get a class full of talented running backs from the 1st round all the way to the 7th. You can't tell me that. It's just poetic justice.
Yes, sir. And I think ultimately it's in some ways kind of sad for the outlook of the position. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but I feel like when you have a class this deep, it kind of pushes the market back almost a couple of years. It's like, hey, I don't want to really pay this position because look at all the guys that just came in super fucking cheap, right? So interesting times to be a running back even before this, right? With the Derrick Henry stuff popping off and all that. So very fun position to keep our eyes on, especially as we get closer to fantasy season. But our next thing to consider before we make our draft grades is Cole. You had the honor of making the pick for the Browns here, and you ended up going with Armand Membu. Obviously, at that time when we did our mock draft, that's where he fell. That was a great option, and I won't doubt they would have picked him if he was there, right? But talk a little bit about the thought process there, and then ultimately we already came full circle and talked about Colston Loveland and the fit. It makes sense, but I think you're justified, man. They totally could have went line.
Yeah, well, I mean, way the board fell for us. Obviously, the first 6 were the first 6, and me doing the thing with the Jets, not taking Armand Membu, which I probably should have, and then where I think you should have let Kelvin Banks go, which we'll get to them in the other NFC conference. But I just, I don't think it was a dumb decision because it just made the most sense if that's the case. But them shooting up Colston Loveland, that's why I was like red flag, but really not red flag. It's just they have a plan. They just better hope it works. That's the main thing, right? When you take a shot like that, when everyone knows, like, is he is he going to get taken before your next pick in the 2nd round? Probably. So then you're not going to get him. So if you wanted him that bad, but my thing was, if that was the case, trade back. Right, because we had talks where, like, Ashton Genty doesn't go to the Raiders, then potentially they take him, right? So the thought from potentially getting Ashton Genty or trading up into that spot, and they go with a 7th round bowling ball, that's probably, I'm not going to hot take and say he's going to do better than Genty because he's not going to have the amount of carries that Genty will have, but it's just crazy full circle. Like you're talking about the different kind of paycheck that that 1st round pick's going to get versus the 7th round.
Yes, sir. And the potential of having a pretty not even. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near even, but if it's relative at all, right? Like it's a huge bang for your buck. But once again, I think we're done fucking sucking off the Bears here. I think this is in
Definitely not the
practice.
Browns.
In practice, yeah, definitely not the Browns. They're fucked for life. But yeah, get fucked. Shout out to the Ravens. But I just am firm in this being for what it is, right? For who is orchestrating it. I think this is, you could argue, a perfect draft. So I'm gonna give this an A+. I did it. I did it. I finally got it out of my system. Cole, how you feel it?
I mean, I feel good. Are you ready for this grade here?
Did you hear me give you the grade just now?
Oh, I guess my brain just didn't register.
You're good, bro. You're good.
Tell me that
I
grade
gave
again.
I gave him a fucking A+. Not
A
only
plus?
the first A+ that I dropped, and I think a big part
Wow.
of that is just because, like I said, the orchestration is very clear why they made the picks that they made, and I think the value that they got, especially like what really pushed it over was with to get Shamar Turner where you got him in your draft, and obviously to have those picks in that second round is what allowed it. But man, like if that's your third guy you drafted on draft night, on draft week, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that's a great draft. So exciting times, if you ask me.
I guess my brain just didn't work because normally you don't hear Chicago Bears and A plus go in the same sentence. Now I'm just playing. Uh, I have them as an A. I can't get the A plus, but I guess it's just because of the Colson Loveland. I wouldn't necessarily say hate, but just the shock factor for me versus you. That would be the only thing, but everything else is like filling where they need. And it's like, okay, you could have used an edge, but that's where the Shamar Turner play kind of comes in because to me, they're probably going to use them more in the 4i or exterior than even truly in the inside. So, perfectly fine with giving them an A, not an A minus, A, which I think for me is the highest grade, and obviously your first A plus highest
Mhm.
grade. So, somebody should be happy after we're done with this, but we'll see. I'm sure I will get griped and complained about, but I don't care.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're transparent here, right? Shout out to all of my family that live in Chicago. I'm sure if you get to check this one out, you'll be happy of what I had to say about the Bears. Now it's time to go out there and put it on the field, because I could see a world where everything falls apart, and now, hey, we might be re-rolling at quarterback again. But we move on to a very exciting team to talk about because this is a very interesting draft that they went with. We go to the Detroit Lions. No, wait. Should we fuck it. I already started it. We go round 1. Their 28th pick, they go Tyleek Williams. And now this, I think it's important to make this very clear, right? This comes as a surprise to many other people. Why would they go Tyleek Williams this high, right? Like nobody's talking about this guy. And then you are reminded that somebody like me had him listed as their fifth best
And he went
overall.
fifth out of inside defensive lineman.
And which you love to see. I was very surprised though overall. Kind of the same discussion you almost had where hey, you maybe you could have went back and still got this guy or not moved up if I'm not mistaken. So no, that comes on later with Isaac Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. I mean, once again, we're working through the kinks together. But I like this pick a lot just because I like the player more than most people do. I think he's really going to translate to the next level, and that's what I'm excited for. And especially to have the opportunity, right, to wreak havoc alongside uh, some of the best guys in the game, but also guys that need to be able to still prove that they're able to do that consistently after dealing with some significant injuries. With you could say that about both of my Super Smash Bros from that team, Anzalone, as well as Aiden Hutchinson. So joins a great room, which makes you even more excited, right? You got a lot of different things to complement you as far as what you want to get done. But I think especially with them drafting him this high, it's very clear what they plan to do with them. So
I'll say, yeah, they definitely had him higher on their draft board, higher than what I did, but I can eat my words for only having it as an honorable mention. But the interior defensive line guys were pretty good in this class as well. So, this was like their number one need, in my opinion, out of all positions, that interior defensive line, because if their defense was getting gashed, it wasn't really in the pass game. It wasn't outside runs. It was interior runs in between the tackles. Um, their defense still aggressive and wants to be crazy because you know how Dan Campbell is, but this is just a solidified, we've got to have an anchor on that defensive line, and this is the guy we've got to take. Nothing really else to say. He's huge. He splits double teams. He's a lot faster than people realize. And he's not only good at run stopping, he's good at causing pressure and pushing the pocket in the pass game.
Yes, sir. The full package. We move on to their second round pick, Tate Ratledge at number 57. And now, while I was not familiar with this game, I think that the real things that really stick out to me here, right? The real things that get me excited is that, first of all, agile in the passing game. But this guy's fucking powerful. Like, and I think that fits exactly to the T what the Lions are trying to do out there. Let's get another white boy on the squad. God damn it. You love a good mullet as well in the name intro. So shout out to Tate Ratledge, powerful mullet. But in all seriousness, I think he just fits what they're trying to do on both sides of that offense. How you like it?
I will say, once he gets his hands on you, causes problems. I know he was giving Bama issues in that second half of that game. And then, I mean, he started 37 games at right guard. He's huge, 6'7", but that's where he's supposed to be, is at guard. Like you're saying, he's super strong, and he's a lot faster and agile than you realize. And where he excels the most is zone heavy run scheme. And guess what the Lions like to do? So this is really a knockout of the park, and really, to me, this was like their second or third most needed thing, because I know their offensive line's starting to, whether it's contract or age, it's starting to get to that point. So they've got to find the next people to pass the torch.
Yes, sir. And he fits right into that mold. We move on to the third round pick, the one I already fucking tipped my hand on, number 70. They go Isaac Tesla. And I know this was a surprise to everyone, but I think just especially with the way they moved up, you would have thought that this guy was you would have thought this was a Mecca Ibuka that slid all the way to fucking 70. Once again, just the same thing of, why didn't you move back? If you love this guy so much, you moved up. But I guess there is that idea of, if you want your guy, you know it's your guy, go get your guy, right? Me personally, obviously he's a big receiver, and I think he can complement what they do very well on the outside. But I think there were similar guys as far as archetype that were still on the board that could have provided similar things, right? So I think this is one that is going to have to make sense in hindsight. I think there's no way we could slice it as far as this being a defensible pick here. But it sounds a little harsh, but especially to move up to get the guy, I was just shocked. Am I crazy?
I wouldn't necessarily say crazy, but you know how the Lions have figured some things out, right? Ever since the Campbell's been in the office, they've just done some things where it has seemed questionable in the past years, and then it goes to pay off. This is either he's going to line up on the outside and cause problems where Amon-Ra does that, but they like to move Amon-Ra wherever they need him. But this guy played better in the slot whenever he was at Hillsdale College, I think, Division III, before transferring to Arkansas. And he ran a 4.3, so he's still fast. Not only his, being 6'4", almost 20 yards per catch. So I can see in a situation where he's a plug and play kind of guy, you maybe put him on the outside for diversion. If they give it to you against a shorter corner, go for it. If not, there's a chance you've got Amon-Ra and him inside on the slot, and then they've got like Laporta lined up in a Gronkowski out wide on his own, right? Because he's already a threat in his own in the pass game. So I think he's just a gadget guy, offensive scheme, based on what they like to do a lot. If they had to spread it out and bring in a fourth receiver, then he would be able to get the job done.
Yeah, it's interesting and it makes sense, but it doesn't at the same time. We move on
Exactly.
to the fifth round pick. We go 171, Miles Frazier. Now, I think this guy's absolutely huge, right, for a guard. Because coming off the bus, they love this pick. But I think all the things that come with being a guard that size does plague him on the tape, right? I think he can lumber a little bit. I think he can get stuck on guys and end up losing the advantage because of it. But at the same time, I think, once again, tools pay the bills. And I think he can, especially with the size and length, really make a difference at that guard spot. How do you like it?
I will say this is more of a gap scheme guard, in my opinion, but he did play 11 games at left tackle and 2 at right tackle. So there's a chance he gets some outside love. Obviously, he did mostly in the interior and just adding more depth in that spot for them. Maybe one of these guys moves to center for them out of Ratledge and Frazier. It'll probably be Frazier more, in my opinion. because there's a chance that they might need a new center after I think this year, if I remember correctly. And but this is another guy where I mean I say gap scheme, but he's still quick enough that it just I feel like they just find the right guys where they need them. And I'm not saying this is like a knockout of the park, but they somehow always produce their offensive line in a good way. It's just that most of their offensive line production is less in the pass game, which is what has hindered them in their last few playoff runs after being so elite in the regular season.
Great shout, but nothing else is expected when Cole is on the show. We move on to their 6th-round pick at 196. They go Ahmed Hassensada. I think that's how you say that.
Hassanine.
Hassanin. Hassan, baby. I honestly, let's be real here, right? I think this is a guy that you like what you see as far as his production, right? I think as far as the tape, it's a little harder for me to see those same skills working against grown men, right? But I think he's clearly shown that he's a real powerful guy, getting 22 sacks and always is pushing the pocket. Um, a little concerned about consistency on the motor, but when he's going downhill on you, he's gonna wreak some havoc. So I like the pick, and I think once again, getting somebody this late where you don't need to be the main focus on the offense's mind when they're preparing, I think what you're able to do starts to really open up. So I think in that role, I like the pick, but not in love with the guy necessarily. How you feel?
Yeah, I can agree as well. I feel like it's always a testament to some of these teams, right, where you get an edge with a high motor that's not as consistent, but you use him on those second and longs, third and longs, because what does he really want to do? He wants to cause pressure and get after it. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't have any power, because he definitely does. He's good at transitioning out of speed to power. But like you're talking about the inconsistency, where if they had to keep him out there for a full drive, I don't think he can get the job done. But if they can plug and play him to keep people fresh, it'll be a problem.
Yes, sir. It will be a problem. And before we get into oh, I'm sorry. I had to let the sirens go by. We go to our 7th-round pick, number 230. They get Dan Jackson, the safety. And I think
Another Georgia player.
another guy that was just a walk-on, right? Worked his way onto the field and now gets drafted by the Lions. I think Dan Jackson is somebody who may not get the chance to be that guy early on, but I think he's someone that's going to stick around on this team. I'm a big fan of his game, and I think the way he's grown throughout his career is the most remarkable thing I think about him, right? I think he wins a lot with it. And once again, I hate to say this because I feel like this is just once again the key words you hear when you talk about white boys in sports, right? But I'm here like, man, this guy wins with his mind, right? Like he's very much so aware and ahead of a lot of these plays, which helps him really stay in the right spots. And I'm just a fan. I'm just a fan. So how you like Dan Jackson?
I will say, I mean, it's always a testament to walk-ons, right? And especially being a walk-on in a program of Kirby Smart's at Georgia says a lot. And he got to start in his last year, so and looked great in the Senior Bowl. Ran well at his pro day. Obviously, he didn't get an invite to the combine, but still got drafted, right? So the main thing is that he just doesn't. There's the room for error for some of the talent wise that you get in early rounds versus late rounds is a lot tighter, right? That's just what happens with athletically gifted people. But whenever you're someone who just works hard for it, it just says something. So this just screams a special teams scout warrior that's just going to do, I mean, probably cause maybe 2 forced fumbles in his first season as a rookie on special teams. You never know. It's stuff like that that makes a difference. So I can see that, yeah, like you said, he'll stick on the roster and he'll probably cause a few game-changing plays on special teams.
Definitely go wreak some havoc. We move on to the final pick, Dominic Lovett, and I'm gonna be real. This man was not on my radar, but it fucking jumps out on the paper, man. This guy makes plays, man, in traffic. Like this guy makes plays, and I think this is a great pick at the 7th-round slot because you convinced me of a gem just by researching the show. I'm like, man, this guy is much better than advertised, and I think the real key is like you end up in these scenarios maybe because you're not the most polished, right? Maybe because you're not the most adept at running routes. But if you can be Keenan Allen and just win in those spots, it doesn't matter, right? He's not obviously that archetype as far as that height and that size, right? But what I mean by that is if you can make plays in traffic that is just absolutely fucking dynamic and clear, um, strength at the catch point, like you're gonna find a role on an offense, even if it's just a little hitch route or something to get a certain amount of yards. Like you're gonna play your way onto the field, and I think this is a guy that could do that for the Lions.
I'm about to say the main thing, and I just hate to do another Georgia guy, right? I mean, if the process works for the Eagles, then might as well do it as well. I just expect them to get a little more Bama guys, but it's okay. But no, love it. If you watch that second half of the Georgia Bama game, and I testament to when I was talking about someone else that was in his receiver room that I was higher on as a pick, and I think Cleveland might have gotten or somebody. No, it was not Cleveland, but wait, what am I talking about? We're in the NFC North, but he just those Georgia receivers were very undervalued because it was Carson Beck that was the inconsistent factor, in my opinion. Now he's not in Georgia; he's in Miami, whatever. But I think that both the receivers from Georgia are going to do a lot better than people realize. And then I already know what's going to happen. The Georgia fans are going to be like, "Where was this when you were here at college?" And it's like, well, you got to realize who was throwing the ball to them. They were played with drops, but at the same time, that goes both ways. But the main thing for him, he was like just clutch factor, right? When they needed him in tight spots in some of those games where they did struggle, like Bama, second half coming back, Auburn, they struggled in that game. A little bit of the Tennessee game before they pulled away, just stuff like that. It's like he made plays when it needed to be made. And then obviously the pedigree of what he had with them prior as well. So this to me is just, it's a nice solid steal at receiver. He'll find a way to get his touches, and maybe he doesn't fully get his spot here with Detroit, but his name will be somewhere on some team at some point.
Great shouts all around. I love that I get to go first for the grades because I think I'm going to set the bar here, right? I'm going to be honest. I think I'm going to set the bar here. Um, I was impressed by this draft in some ways, but I was also kind of like underwhelmed in others. I think I ended up going with a B here, a solid B. And the reason why I feel that way is because once again, I think we just got a little cute, right? I like the same way my Thunder did in game one, right? We're changing the fucking starting lineup. We're just trying, we're doing too much here. And I feel like that was the theme of the Lions drafts with a lot of different picks. I ended up, if I remember correctly, in the mock having their pick. And I picked why did I say John? John Cena. That's who I fucking picked in the mock. No, I picked Josh Simmons. And I think once again, he was still there on the board. You could have made
Yep.
that pick. But I think all things considered, doesn't really doesn't really matter, right? You got the guy that you needed to fit that spot, and you got him a little later, right? And you also got your defensive guy too, right? So I think ultimately, as far as checking the boxes, they did that while also taking some home run swings on some guys that if they look wrong, can make this grade look very nice to them. So I go a solid B, but I could see it being lower on your end, so I'm interested.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? So it's the first round pick I really like, and then the second round pick I also really like, and then you go into the third, and it's like it could have been better, but it does also pop out, and that's one of those like red herrings that you would be like, okay, maybe this isn't going to work out. But then they double down on the guard, and they still get another receiver later that I'm higher up on. Maybe the safety was not necessarily needed. I just think they wanted a go getter, maybe a locker room guy, right? And then just getting an edge. And so there was no center that they potentially needed, but with two guards, there's a chance. So they could technically almost screen out everything a position of need. But I agree with you on it not like popping out as much. I was debating either B plus or B or even B minus, but I stuck with a B as well, just like you.
Wow, look at that. I honestly thought you would be lower, so I love that.
I was more towards going higher than lower. I'll be honest.
Interesting, interesting. We move on to Green Bay and the Packers, and of course Matthew Golden is just dripping in all the sauce right now. We got
All the gold.
the first round pick at number 23, Matthew Golden, and hot take. I think if you're gonna go out there and finally fucking get a first round receiver, it's just kind of funny that this is the guy. I think ultimately he really did get bumped up big time, right? Because of everything that happened with the combine and all that good stuff. He was now at number 4 and your number 3 wide receiver, right? And to be able to get that at this spot is great. Um, I just what really shocks me about this pick is for so long this team has really had a great wide receiver room, right? One of the deepest in the league. But you could argue they have a huge wide receiver problem, and that is we don't got a number one. I don't look at Matthew Golden's game as a number one type game. So can you convince me of that, Cole?
I mean, I can. He was Texas's number one, and Texas was a good enough program. People thought it was Isaiah Bond, but we're not even going to talk about what he did in the combine and everything like that. Everything even post after that with all everything that going on. I wish he would have just stayed at Bama and kept things clean. He would have been a legend at that 4th and 31. Now with the transfer portal, he's like, you can't be known as a Bama legend for that play if you don't go to the school anymore. That's my opinion. But I mean, whenever people thought they looked at the receiver room Texas, they were like, nobody's really a number one guy. But then he just consistently made plays where needed to be made all the time. Did not make a difference. So, I mean, what, sub 4.3, plucks the ball out of the air. I talked about how shocking as a 5'11" receiver, he's able to just jump up and go get the ball, especially in red zone possessions, and how he's able to just the acrobatic catches kind of like go off the chart. So that's where, for me, the fact that he's able to obtain the types of catches that he makes is kind of what puts it out there, right? So if it's some awkward way, coverage is just too tight, doesn't make a difference. Somehow the ball just stays in his hands, and I maybe he's not a wide receiver one right now. I feel like they don't necessarily want him to be a wide receiver one right now. They just got a bunch of wide receiver twos, but all it takes is just a bunch of wide receiver twos for him to just be like, all right, this is my job, I'm taking it, and I think that he can step up into that spot. So I enjoy the pick. I definitely think they should have went one of the better offensive linemen or the corners that were still available. I mean, obviously Will Johnson fell like tremendously, but Maxwell Hairston was still available. Will Johnson was still available. And I felt like they needed the corner the most, which obviously they address way down the line, but I don't think that really counts in my opinion. But
Yep.
I'm still cool with this pick.
Yes, sir. I'm very cool with it too. I think once again I'm nitpicking here because I had him in my top 5. I can't be bitching too hard, right? But I just feel like when it comes to the NFL level, right? I just feel like his skills are more so or so kind of a gadget guy that can be anchored behind somebody else, and you feel like they already got somebody like that in Jaden Reed, and you can name 4 other guys that are really good that are probably in that same vein.
That
But
also ended the longest streak, if I remember correctly, in
yes,
NFL
sir.
without taking a receiver in the first round. So
Hey,
there's
catch
that.
this. Jordan Love was 3 years old the last time they got a first round
That's
receiver.
insane.
So good on him that he got one. We move on to the second round pick, number 54. They went belt to ass. Anthony Belton. And I'm going to let you talk about the man because he's a goddamn man out there. 6'6, 336, Cole.
Oh yeah, straight up unit. I mean, left tackle off the charts is what he screams. He's not going anywhere else. I mean, if they want to put him right tackle, whatever. But if you watch him in the Senior Bowl, incredible. Just mauled defensive linemen, prospects that we've already talked about in multiple episodes. Relentless, definitely goes till after the whistle, which kind of comes across as more of a guy for the Lions, in my opinion, not Green Bay style. But maybe that's what they need on the offensive side of the ball, if I'm honest, especially when you got Josh Jacobs in the backfield. This is the kind of guy you really want. And the fact that he's just stone cold Steve Austin when it comes to pass rushers. He's just like, you shall not pass, like he's Gandalf or something. So he might need a little bit of help with the guards initially in his first year, but I like this pick more than even Matthew Golden. As much as high as I am on Matthew Golden, I like this pick more. It's just like maybe that's why they went on ahead and went for that, because this pick as a late second round, really, really solid. Really, really solid. And they definitely needed this.
I definitely agree. I think this is somebody that, especially when you consider the need of this position across the board, really slid in a big way. So I think getting him here is great, but I can't say that about the next pick. We go to the third round, number 87, Savion Williams. And don't get me wrong, I see the vision. I think this guy's a special player, and I think he's going to be good, especially because they went with the beer this fucking high. He better be good. He better produce for you. But clearly they have a role in mind for him. If they're picking him up this high, I think he can very much so obviously just be that all type down kind of guy. He could play running back for you if you need him. You could play wide receiver, mix him up on different downs, play fucking throw wildcat snaps to him. Like I think he could do a lot of things for this offense. But I think they have a lot of guys that can do a lot of things for this offense, which makes this pick very, very confusing. I think ultimately, though, you have to side with the capital, and I think you're going with the guy within the top 100 because you see a way in which he could transform your offense. So man, I'm really interested to see the way this all plays out. And I think this is very much so, more than anything, confirming that I think the Packers as an organization are out on Christian Watson. I think they just figure, like, I know this sucks and we don't want to see you injured, but at this point, we have to figure out our path forward. So, Savion Williams, not that I'm saying he's a one-to-one comparison, right? But I think once again, when you draft two receivers within the first 3 rounds, and after never drafting a wide receiver in the first round, you clearly are trying to address this, even though it's a deep position for you. So this is another one of those where I see the vision, like the Lions with Isaac Tesla, but it just came way earlier in a way that makes the draft a little tainted, right? You could have moved back, man.
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth. Clearly, there is a vision on what they see in the future of their receiver room, and they're trying to address it now. Um, but I mean, Savion Williams, just versatile playmaker, like you said. I love you shouted that Wildcat out because obviously he was the first TCU player ever to have a receiving, rushing, and passing touchdown since 2017. So at least they did it before, but since 2017, and I mean, the main thing is his size, 6'4", right, big, long arms, just extends to get to the ball. So, I mean, he's going to make plays. He's not, I mean, he's just another guy that just looks like, oh, yep, that's a receiver that goes to the Packers. They're like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 kind of guy. Um, but I feel like the him and Matthew Golden going in together in the vision of, I don't know how awkward things will be in the receiver room this year. I think that they'll have things more cleared up in this next season. But like you said, it's a vision. We try to figure things out, and we got to respect it. And receivers still in the category of a position of need because of the cloudiness that room has, and the inconsistency of injuries and who's going to actually be the guy. So, I mean, I got to respect them doubling down on that position at least like that.
Yep, I mean tripling fucking down when you consider the last couple years. But I mean, remember last year they drafted what, like 3 safeties or something like that. So they're not shy. They're not shy. But we move on to their next pick in the 4th round, 124. Baron Sorrell, one of the best names in the draft as well. Shout out of Texas. And I just gotta say, man, I think this guy's gonna be a fucking player. I think this guy's a problem. Like absolute stud when it comes to just being physical and winning by being physical and just relentless in that way. I think comes from a quality program. I look forward to everything that comes from the defense because of this guy. I think he's going to be able to make the guy next to him better because of his effort. Now the question is whether or not he can stay on the field, right? That's going to be the big issue, especially as he's facing more polished defenders, or offensive linemen, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's interesting that we wait this late to get a defensive player, and ultimately, I really like the guy. So
I will say the one thing I do know at this point of the draft, I think the Packers and the Vikings were the only ones that had not taken a defensive player at all. So especially when this was to a lot of people their highest position of need, wasn't my highest. I thought it was offensive line, but highest position of need. And you're talking about his strength, the brutality that he has. He tied for second, I think, in bench 28 reps. So out of all the defensive ends. So, and it shows up on tape. He just bullies people. Any type of offensive lineman that stands up too high and they're top heavy. I don't know how many times I've seen countless offensive linemen just get bull rushed into the ground. And so he's a threat. He's definitely a bigger threat than a lot of some of these other 4th-round picks are. I definitely see him actually finding a way to get some playing time, especially because maybe on their defensive line as well, you would say that there's a little bit of some inconsistencies on the edge. I know maybe it's been more clear in this last few years for them than maybe in past. So that just helps that they've added another person in that spot.
Yeah, inconsistency is a great word. I feel like it's so random because you look at the names and you think they'll be able to produce, but it just doesn't show up on paper. We move up to the next pick in the fifth round, 159. They go Colin Oliver. I think he's a little undersized for the position, but once again, why not double swing on the position, right? Let's go out there and get another edge, get another guy that could get snaps for us, and especially because once again, this is the second guy you drafted. I don't hate on it.
Yeah, I mean, he had 15 and a half tackles for losses last season. I see him more off the ball because of him being lighter, might be more transition. Like I said, he's really a linebacker, but he does give edge vibes, right? I can see him just being more of an outside linebacker guy if they're going to go like 3-4 look. But I think the Packers are normally 4-3 if they're mainly going to do something. But he point of attack, shoots gaps. I mean, it's the basic stuff I'm going to say when it comes to linebackers. Runs well, good effort. The main thing is he's an inconsistent tackler, and that's the number one thing you cannot have. So maybe they're able to grow that out of him. So, I mean, there's a chance they put weight on him and then they full time put him at edge. So maybe the tackling becomes less of an issue because he's not in open field tackles as often. And then they're just doubling down on the edge and they're trying to stick out of the two of them which one's going to stay. But in my opinion, I think it's Baron Sorrell for sure. So I mean, this pick's okay. I don't like it, but I mean, if they want to add more to the linebacker room or whatever their plan is to use him for, then I mean, go for it.
Yep, exactly. And once again, it's kind of weird too because we were running 4-3 here. So like, what the fuck is the plan? But hey, it's all good. We move on. Since you already touched on it, because I don't really have anything else to say. We move on to their seventh rounder from Pittsburgh. They go Micah Robinson out of Tulane, third straight year. They
Oh, we
give
skipping a guy. Hold
Yeah,
on.
no, because you mentioned him already, and I said I got nothing else to say about him. So
To who? To Brinson?
no, exactly, to Brinson.
Oh, I didn't say anything about
Sorry.
Brinson.
You did. You mentioned him.
Did I?
My bad. Yeah, and I said yeah when you were talking about that room.
Oh, I was
You
talking about Colin Oliver, honestly.
got you. Well, you were saying basically a
Yeah,
part of
edge. Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
similar
yeah.
to, but he's definitely a big guy, right? I was talking about inconsistencies, defensive line. So, I mean, I recap real quick. The
Oh, yeah, my
previous
bad. My
statement,
bad, guys.
you're good,
Sorry.
you're good, you're good. The previous statement, realistically, was for Oliver because I think they're going to make him gain weight to make him another edge. This guy does not need to gain weight. He's 6'5", 315. He only started 8 games at Georgia, so he's just a go get kind of let's mold him. The ceiling's not as high as it is now, but there's a way to just bring it up. Just freak athlete, just very raw, and I think that's what they want to do is just mold him into it. And I think just to keep people fresh on that defensive line. But yes, when I said the inconsistencies of the defensive line, I guess I was jumping the gun. I didn't even realize I did it.
And it was great too because you mentioned him right after. So it was like I don't have anything else to say because quite literally I don't. I agree. He's a raw guy, but toolsy guy, and I think that's a great guy to pick at that level, at that round, and especially the third swing at the position, right?
I
So
just think
once
we want to
again,
get the Packers out of here. I'll be
yeah, yeah,
honest. I'm just
clearly. Let's
kidding.
usher them the fuck out of here. I also am looking at this 1 o'clock on the East Coast thing, and I'm kind of losing my mind. But
I know that's right.
we move on to their next pick. I love how I have their an unnecessary thing here, but we go Micah Robinson in the
See the
seventh
defensive
round,
Bills.
237. They got the defense of the Bills as well, which you love to see.
They probably wish they had the defensive Bills.
Yeah, definitely, especially with that defensive front. But the cornerback out of Tulane, third time that they get a cornerback.
In the 7th round.
Oh, specifically, wow, well,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. I thought it was just as a theme, but I have nothing on the player. So do you have anything on the Tulane prospect?
I can, and I can give you the fact that I was saying about 3 years of the 7th round. It was Carrington Valentine 2 years ago, and then Kalen King last year.
How the hell do you know that, bro? That's fucking
Don't worry
crazy.
about it. Don't worry about it. Let me actually pull up my actual notes here for him. Played nearly 700 snaps. As a rookie, another 140. Oh, that's talking about the teammate. What the heck? No, I don't want that. Get that out of here. There's my guy. He's light on his feet, which is very good at a corner. And 4 years at Furman, 1 at Tulane. Short arms, quick, runs well. So I mean, it's just a guy like I put him on special teams. if he starts to show out, then maybe there's a spot that he goes into that need. But like I said, there's a lot of people that said the corner was their highest position of need to have someone pair with Alexander. And I, they wait until the 7th round and they just do, like you said, 3 years in a row for a 7th rounder and just throwing darts and trying to hope that they stick. I mean, he at least picked off 7 passes, but it was over the last 3 seasons, so it's not as impressive when it comes to that. So I feel like I'm just bashing on them, but maybe it's my internal thoughts because of uh, my ties to friends and family that are Chicago fans.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We got to be honest here on the show. So our final pick, 7th rounder, number 250. They went John Williams,
My
and I gotta
brother,
say, yeah, I gotta say, man,
same last name
you
as me.
love to see when a team goes out there and says, you know what, you might not be what you have been, right? But clearly you've been the best guy on your squad, right? So let's get you in here in this room, and hey, maybe you're a guard for us. Maybe we shift you to the inside. But I think this is somebody that the learning curve. If the learning curve doesn't eat him alive, I think he's going to end up producing in the second half of the season for them, which is a great shout at the 7th rounder. Is that a hot take, Cole?
I don't think it's a hot take at all. And I mean, I guess a little bit of a testament to the G. I mean, we don't agree with some of these picks per se. Overall, I know I kind of jumping the gun on overall stuff, but uh, you kind of took the words like left tackle guy prospect to be an interior. The Packers are known for taking left tackles and making them interior, so it just kind of works out that way. Um, but shout out to the GM that they have. What's this? Gutekunst. Gutekunst um, took the players with all 8 picks that he started the week with, or I don't think they did any like trading shenanigans, and making the first time since he took over as GM in 2018 that he never made a trade. So then that would be correct. I think there was another fun fact. I'll have to see if I can find it in my notes if we want to roll into it. But I don't think you're crazy with your statement.
At least we could see the vision. So this is where things get fun because now it's time for us to mull this over, Cole. It's time for us to figure out what we're going to do here. Now, let's go back to the mock draft, though. Before we do that, it's important to mention that the smart pick that I had them making was James Pierce Jr. And I think, obviously, considering how it went, they had a clear focus on going offense, right? But I think you could argue they could have benefited from going defense. I think they trust clearly in the guys that they have. KYP, know your personnel. I think they're happy to bring those guys back and try to find new production out of those same guys. But I think personally, what you've got would have gotten out of production from getting a first round defensive guy, especially if someone that was available at that slot. Um, in my opinion, it's a no brainer. But at the same time, especially with the roster, like that's the issue with me, especially with the fucking roster, man. You can't justify this, especially because there's still guys that you would love to see on your team at receiver that you could get with your 2nd rounder if that was the move you're gonna make.
Yep.
So I'm once again, clearly this is their guy. It better fucking work out because if it doesn't, it looks really bad on you. Like once again, it's like the over coaching thing. But because of all these different things, I think ultimately I'm being a little harsh on the Packers. I'm going to give them a C plus plus. I wanted to make it a B minus, but I just feel like once again, I mean the capital wasn't good in the first place.
Yeah.
Also considering how close they felt as a team, right? Like I didn't think they were that close, right, to making it to the pinnacle, but yet the capital was really bad as if it was. I don't know, man. I've said enough already. C plus plus. Am I being mean, Cole?
I really wouldn't say you're being mean. I know we've kind of really been berating them. The one thing I will be positive is they greened out all the positions, which is one thing. At least we're going to say by ranking of ESPN's top 5 position of need. Do I think they did it in the right order? I do not. I still love Matthew Golden, but I still think that they did things in the wrong order. They definitely should have went either defense or offensive lineman first, and then got one of those later receivers that we would have had no issue with, and then filled some other things out later. I do like the back to back or the edge and then the linebacker into the defensive tackle. I'm cool with that to try to answer some inconsistencies at the defensive line. Uh, and then the fun fact that I figured I pulled it back up is their GM 5 years in a row that they drafted a defensive player from Georgia, right? So testament to what Kirby Smart's been doing, right? As much as I can't stand their fans, I respect their program and I like the coach, even though he discredits everything Nick Saban taught him. But that's besides the point. Um, you can't discredit your father. I'm just saying.
Yep.
So I was gonna do C plus plus, but just for the nice fact that they greened everything out, I'm gonna be nice and give them a B minus.
Yep. I love it. Let's do it. And now I'm excited because we get to move on to a 4-player draft. No, I'm
you
sorry, a
got
5-player
there.
draft.
You got that right.
We got with the first round and pick 24, Donovan Jackson, and obviously it's Bear when their next pick is a third rounder. But I think they stuck to their guns. They could have, by all accounts, traded back at multiple different times with these picks, but stood firm and got their guy. And I think they got a good one. Right? They got a damn player with their one pick in the first 3 rounds. Um, he was an honorable mention, not necessarily the guy. And I think once again, some of those other guys were still around. So this pick can come around to bite them. But I just think clearly they once again have the vision for what they want this guy to do to them. Oh, do for them. Um, and I think what makes it exciting is, by all accounts, it seems like the Vikings thinks he has a real chance to start. And this is a position that I think was already good. So interesting
Well,
developments here from Donovan Jackson.
yeah, I think there's a potential. I mean, he did play 9 games at left tackle, but I think that he's just a guard through and through. So there's their opportunity that maybe they're just mixing some things around with the rest of the guys that are already in a good position. Um, Once again, we don't know the future of like contracts or what's going on in the locker room, but he would definitely be in our top 5 if we would have split the tackles and the interior
Yeah.
guys, without a doubt, without a doubt. Um, so this to me is a home run pick. I know that he's probably going to just take one of those guys' jobs that are already in a good position. But if that's the case too, they've got it as a number 2 position of need. So clearly it's either by age or contract, somebody's gone, or maybe even both. So for you to only have 5 picks and you to get like probably the most important or second most important, this is probably also the best available if you're going to specifically do the guard position at this point. So yeah, I'm cool with this pick.
Yes, sir. And we move on to that third rounder, 102. They went Ty Felton. And I got to say, man, if JJ McCarthy is worth his sweat at this next level, and I think Cole's already shaking his head, but if he's worth anything at this next level, I think this guy's gonna ball out this season. Because goddamn, they just equipped this offense with every kind of weapon that you possibly could have across the board, from tight end, wide receiver, along the lines. I just love this offense, and he adds to that big time. Right, ran 4.32, an absolute explosive athlete out there, and I think ultimately the big deal is how do you spread the ball around, right? I don't think this is somebody that's going to be a big time producer as a rookie or anything like that. But I think the more he gets accustomed to running routes crisply and effectively, I think he's going to be a problem in this league. So I like Felton a lot, and honestly could say the bang for your buck at where they got him is really good.
I would say that's the main thing, is that it's in the third round. Somehow receiver is in a position of need for them, but I guess it's just because if you really look at their room, you got Jay Jettis, you got Jordan Addison, and then you got Naylor, who's been in the league for a lot longer than people realize, really kind of had his showing out last season more than any. So kind of finding that fourth guy, so that way there's more rotation, at least in that sense. But then also, if you have to spread it out more and you don't have Hawkinson, right? I mean, I'm cool with it. I can't get over the fact that I'll get to the summary part of it, but there's a position of need that is screaming to me, and they're just not addressing it, and that's the main thing. So I'm cool with it, except the fact that my opinion is McCarthy is not going to pan out because he might be the worst quarterback that won a national championship.
I know, and I love that you're so firm on this take, because no matter what, it's just an utter look of disgust on your face when JJ McCarthy gets brought up at the function, right? Like as soon as
And if you've got these
JJ
weapons, you
McCarthy
have
gets
no
mentioned.
excuse. No
No,
excuse,
100%.
man.
100%, right? This guy just got Sam Darnold fucking paid. So yeah, I agree.
Quarterback whisperer, right? Kevin O'Connell.
Yep, you can't fuck this up, and I think ultimately they're trying to set him up in a position where he can't. We move on to one of my favorite names in the draft. Right, we got a little three-parter here. We got Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. Shout out, love a good Tyrion on the squad, and obviously they are pretty good at D lineman already, right? So they're in a position where they're going to allow this guy to grow into the role that they need him to be in this offense. They're not going to depend on it for him now, and I think with this skill set works perfectly with the pick, right? I think most of the guys you're going to get it down here, these picks are going to be raw anyway. But I think once again, the fact that he's in the situation he's in, where he's not being asked to produce, bodes well for him in his future. How well he can attack the learning curve of the NFL is going to determine how long his career goes as well. But um, I don't mind it. I ain't happy, but I don't mind it.
I will say I don't mind it at all. I think for a fifth round pick, this is really good. You got to think about the D line room that they have. They just got Jonathan Allen after he no longer was with the Commanders. They got Javon Hargrave, right? I think from the Colts, if that tracks right. And then obviously Harrison Phillips is 29, and then obviously the guys I just mentioned are both over 30 or over 30. So they got some age on him at the interior and the exterior part of the defensive line. So, and the thing is, he's versatile because of him being 6'5", 280. As an interior guy, seems lighter weight, so he's going to be more three tech in a 4-man front, and then on a 3-man front, he's just going to play defensive end. So, it's good to have a versatile guy and a young guy to be able to rotate with the room that they're already going to have. So, I'm cool with it. It's definitely more giving more interior defensive line, so it might mark off as an edge, but I think it's more D tackle, and so that would give a green in that area.
Yes, sir. It's only right. We move on to six. I don't know how it got put out of order like that, but let's go 6-201 first. Kobe King, the linebacker out of Penn State. I think ultimately his role is going to be on special teams, right? More than likely. But I think Brian Flores is a genius, right? And we saw this early, right? That was the talk of the town as far as their ability to win, because obviously everyone's like, holy shit, Sam Darnold's a guy. But also everybody was like, man, the ways in which this defense cloaks what they're doing, right, is really cool. And I think because of that, right, because of the architect of this defense, maybe this guy turns out to be more than just a special teams guy. But I like to pick this late, all things considered.
I would say now you're going to have me going into details on the defensive side. I've always enjoyed it. If people notice, if you've ever a big Madden head and you pick the Vikings defensive playbook, even if it hadn't been Flores in the past, if you'll notice that there's always a package for the Vikings that allows both A gaps to be completely vacant of defensive linemen, and both linebackers are lined up on the center. We used to run that at the high school level too, but then we would just pick and choose which lineman. So basically, we'd find out which lineman out of the 5, which you can't really do in the league, can't do it in college. Maybe you can do it a little bit in college. Let me backtrack that. But find your worst lineman, and I'm gonna put my 2 best guys on your worst lineman. Sometimes people say that that's a bad idea because they're just going to go away from them. But if your worst guy's your center, then it doesn't matter because now they can go either side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always enjoyed what the Vikings done. Definitely was impressed with the versatility and the clouding and disguising that they would do, the faux coverage or the faux blitz alignment that they would do, the pre-snap to post-snap. It's just a work of art. Someone give me a whiteboard and let me pull up some film. I'll tell John Gruden he can step aside with his quarterback camp. I'll do that for defense, and we can just have fun for hours.
Yes, sir. I mean, I would pay to watch this, Cole. So might as well lock in, right? Might as well lock in, because if I would, I'm sure somebody else out there would too. We move on to the final pick of their draft, 6-202. They went Gavin Bartholomew. Oh my God, Cole, how the fuck am I so good at this? The tight end, and obviously, all things considered, makes sense. We got Gabe Oliver and TJ in front of him, but I think this isn't a guy that stuck out to me just because he isn't necessarily that athletic tight end, right? That is the prototype that we all get excited about. But I think he could be productive for them, especially as that 6 lineman out there. So I'm a big fan of this because ultimately we need these guys, right? And I think he can also grow into a role maybe on offense, especially if he can develop a little bit of the sloppiness in the footwork. But I think I'm a fan of this guy. I think I'm rooting for him.
I think he takes Josh Oliver's spot as the second position. I'll be honest. So I think that I like it a lot. Tight end definitely wasn't a quote position of need, but when you lose your third and your fourth strings to the tight end room, you can't have just two guys. That's red flag. So you got to at least have a third in there. And why not get Gavin Bartholomew?
Yes, sir. And just like that, we're all done with all five of their picks. It's time to give our grade. And I think, given what they were working with, it isn't as bad in hindsight as I thought, but I'm still giving them a C. I think ultimately it sucks. Like it sucks. And I think when you have a reach, I think the biggest like motivating factor for me to go higher was probably obviously Ty Felton, and then everything you were trying to sell me about with Tyrion. But I just feel like it doesn't outweigh the big jump with the only pick you had that matters. Although once again, I like what the pick means, right? But you still jumped ahead of a lot of things. And then all things considered, not having the capital to really do much else when obviously you're a contender, so it makes sense, right? You pawned off some of these, right? Now it's time for that to come to bear. But all things considered, especially with the way the roster's looking and with all the reshuffles, right? I think you would have liked to have some of those guys. So yeah, C minus.
Yeah, I just like I've waited for this moment. No DBs, corners, and safeties, and I felt like they needed it. I'm talking about desperately needed it.
Yep.
That was where they were struggling defensively when they did. That's why the defense looks so good, because if the box can do its job, the DBs don't have to struggle as bad. But why make the DBs have to potentially be covered up whenever you can do the same thing in the box and still get DBs that do their job? Now you're just causing more turnovers. Um, so I'm not going to go C minus. I'm going to go solid C, but it's just because I'm so high on Donovan Jackson. And I think TID is a lot better of a pick than potentially, being shown at the fifth round. And then I think Bartholomew
Mhm.
ends up taking the number 2 spot. So that's why for me, it would be just a solid C. But it's just that if you get a DB here, I'm giving you a B minus, maybe, but C plus for sure. I can't unsee the fact that you just avoided, in my opinion, the top positions of need. Didn't matter if it was a nickel guy, outside guy, safety. You needed something in that secondary, and you did not address it at all.
Yeah, man. And it brings about the question, right? Who will be the king of the North? I think the Lions, and you could argue the Vikings, kind of took a little bit of a step back here, right? Whether or not we like what they did in the draft, I think you can definitely say that they took a step back from where we regarded them last season. And then, of course, you consider the Chicago Bears are just blowing it out the absolute park, right? So it's time to see whether or not they could really show up. But once again, this was one of the best divisions in football last season, and I think nothing's going to change about that. I think all of these teams are looking forward to the future and growing in ways that they need. I think the fact that the Bears have really blown it out the park, they're clearly trying to uh, bridge some of that gap. And I think they figured out a lot last season in the last couple of weeks. That makes me encouraged about Caleb Williams' future as the quarterback. But I just think this division is stacked, man. And I have no idea who's going to end up being the king of the North. But hopefully, we don't have another 14 win road playoff team.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. But I mean, yeah, you talking about NFC North overall, I can agree, especially last season. It was like them in the AFC West, and we already talked about the pedigree of the head coaches over in the AFC West.
Mhm.
This season there might be a little bit of an argument between an NFC North and maybe the NFC East.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Especially with how the Commanders just roared onto the scene.
Yeah,
Goddamn.
and I don't see the Cowboys trying to be just as bad as last year twice in a row. I want them to be, but I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, I like Jaden Blue, man, but we'll cross that bridge where we cross it. Uh, it's always a blast to have you on the show, Cole. Right? I blink and an hour and a half goes by, and I need more. Right? I need more. So I'm looking forward to working on the rest of the NFC. It's coming soon. On the way out, Cole. Remind them one more time where they can find you.
Twitter and Instagram at the_real_J Cole.
You heard the man. Follow me, Negron MMA, TikTok and Twitter, as well as Chris Negron _ on Instagram. Thank you so much for the love and support. It means the world to all of us. And until next time, just remember, right? When you're worried about the landscape of the future, right? And you're like, man, I got a lot of things here. Like I got a lot of things that maybe I should start letting go of some of these worldly possessions, right? Just double down. Like Green Bay doubles down on them receivers, baby. We'll see you with our next draft grade show real soon. Peace.